The wind cut like knives through the slums of Dorrin Station. The outer rings of the orbital hub were never meant for habitation, only for discarded freight and broken machinery. But when the Dominion Wars drove thousands from their homes, the forgotten places became desperate shelters. Among the hollowed-out containers, lit only by flickering plasma torches, a mother crouched with her daughter in her arms. Mira held little Elin tight, trying to rub warmth back into her tiny body. The girl's feet had turned a frightening shade of purple from the cold. Her lips quivered as she whispered, "Mama, hungry." Mira's heart twisted. She had no food left, nothing but the rags they shared. Once, she had been a trader's wife, cooking stews that filled a house with warmth. That was before her husband was lost to war, before her people scattered like dust. Now, she had nothing to offer but empty promises. Desperation clawed at her. She knew what others did to survive in the slums, what women were forced to trade for scraps. She had sworn she would never let it come to that. But tonight, her daughter's small body shook with hunger and cold. She pressed her forehead against Elin's and whispered the words that tasted like ashes. "Just one more meal for my daughter. I'll be yours tonight." The darkness swallowed her plea, carrying it into the night. But someone heard. A shadow stepped from the alley. Broad shoulders beneath a weathered coat, boots worn by travel. A human. Mira froze, clutching Elin tighter. She had heard of humans, reckless, bold, often dangerous. Few came to the slums unless they sought something to exploit. The man's voice was quiet, roughened by years of work. "I heard you." Her breath caught. She rose halfway, trembling. I meant it. If you can give her food, I'll." Her throat locked around the shame. "I'll pay with myself." The man's eyes softened, though his face remained unreadable.
"No," he said.
Her heart dropped. Of course. Why would anyone help without taking something in return? But then he reached into his satchel and pulled out a sealed container. He knelt, opening it carefully, and the scent of real food drifted out. Stew, thick with grain and meat. Mira's mouth watered, but she held back. What do you want, then?" The human met her gaze steadily. For her to eat. She blinked, stunned. Nothing else. Nothing else. Elin ate first, greedily, tears streaking her cheeks as warmth spread back into her tiny body. Mira fed her small spoonfuls, watching color return to her daughter's lips. The human waited silently, only speaking once Elin had fallen asleep against her mother's chest. "My name's Jack," he said. "Mira," she whispered. He nodded. "You don't belong out here." Her laugh was bitter. "And where do I belong? My people cast me aside. The traders won't hire a widow. I have no credits, no skills anyone values. Out here, I am nothing." Jack shook his head. "You're not nothing. You're a mother. That's worth more than all the credits in the galaxy." Her throat tightened. No one had spoken to her like that in years. The next day, Jack returned. Mira thought perhaps it had been pity, a one-time act. But he came with another container of food, and this time blankets as well. He didn't stay long, only enough to be sure they were safe. The following day, he came again.
And again.
Slowly, Mira learned more about him. He was a hauler, running cargo through dangerous trade routes. He had no family left. War had taken them, as it had taken hers. Yet he carried himself with a quiet steadiness, as though grief had shaped him rather than destroyed him. Elin began to look forward to his visits. She would light up when he appeared, her small voice calling, "Uncle Jack," as she scrambled into his arms. Mira watched them, her heart torn between gratitude and fear. Gratitude, because Jack's kindness kept them alive. Fear, because kindness like this never lasted. "Why?" she asked him one evening as they shared a meal. "Why do you keep coming back?" He hesitated, then said simply, "Because I know what it's like to have nothing. Someone once gave me shelter when I thought I had none. I survived because of it. Feels right to pass it on." She studied him. "And you expect nothing in return?" Jack's eyes flicked to hers. "Not from you. Not ever." But the slums were not safe. One night, raiders swept through, scavenging what little the desperate had. Mira clutched Elin, heart pounding, as rough voices echoed closer. She had nothing left to give them, nothing but her daughter. Then the door to their container burst open. Jack stood there, a plasma pistol in hand, his face hard as stone. "Get behind me." The raiders jeered. "A human protecting trash?" "Walk away," Jack said, his voice low and deadly. They didn't. The fight was brutal, but Jack fought with the ferocity of someone who had already lost everything once and refused to lose again. When it was over, the raiders fled, leaving blood on the ground. Mira rushed to him. "You could have died." He wiped blood from his brow, his breath ragged. "Better me than you." Her tears spilled freely then, not from fear, but from something deeper. "Why?" she whispered again. Jack looked at her, his expression softening. "Because you and Elin, you remind me there's still something worth fighting for." From that night, Mira's heart changed. She no longer saw Jack as just a stranger who brought food. He had become their shelter, their shield, their family. Elin adored him, running to greet him with laughter each day. Mira found herself laughing too, the sound strange after so long buried in grief. Together, they began to rebuild. Jack found her work cooking for dockhands, and soon word spread of her stews and breads. Credits trickled in, enough to move from the freezing container into a small but warm room. It wasn't wealth. It wasn't the life she once had. But it was hope. And for the first time, Mira allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, they could have a future. Years later, those who worked the Dorrin Station docks told stories of a human and a widow who built something beautiful out of ruin. Of a man who fought raiders for a woman and her child, not for profit, but because kindness demanded it. Mira never forgot the night she whispered her desperate plea into the cold. "Just one warm meal for my daughter." She had expected degradation. Instead, she had found dignity. And because one human answered not with cruelty, but with care, her daughter grew up laughing instead of starving. Jack had given them more than food. He had given them life. He had given them home.